Hello everyone, this is Farooq and welcome to Revpanda Live. If you wonder what really fuels the growth of the largest iGaming brands, some of the major takeaways I've seen in this industry are the visionary leadership and bringing personalized player experiences. In today's episode, we'll cover many topics including building high-performing teams, making bold moves into markets like US, for instance, and pioneering gamified products that are redefining player engagement. To discuss them all, I'm excited to host Martin Collins, the Chief Business Development Officer at SoftBet. Martin brings over 2 decades of expertise in digital markets and global expansion. He's been a driving force behind SoftBet's impressive growth. Martin, it's a pleasure to have you with us. Thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Farooq, good afternoon. The pleasure's all mine. Looking forward to our conversation.
Amazing. Martin, I gave a short introduction, but you have been in iGaming since its early days. Can you share your journey in iGaming with us? How did it all start?
So yeah, I've almost been in iGaming 20 years. And it all started really from me leaving university. I left university with a master's degree and decided, well, as with all people, I followed a lady. I'd studied in Glasgow and she moved to London. Luckily enough, that lady's now my wife. But I followed a lady and I got involved in recruitment. It was more of a means to an end than a passion, if you like, but I actually really enjoyed the job. And then after 2 or 3 years, quickly realised that although I liked the job, I didn't like the industry I was in. I was working in construction, Farooq. It really wasn't for me. So what I realised was I needed to recruit in an industry that I was interested in. So I was always interested in sports, always went to the casino with my friends. It was always something that I was very interested in. And funnily enough, a business in Glasgow popped up called Betting Jobs, who I'm sure they're still live now. They're still going strong. David Copeland, who founded the business, is still there. Jennifer Innes is now the CEO of the business. I worked with her there. And I stepped into this business and quickly realised that when you combine a job that you like with an industry that you like, then really you're not working a day in your life, right? So yeah, that's where it all started. Almost 20 years ago, with 4 of us in a small office above a dental lab in the outskirts of Glasgow. It was quite strange, but it was really enjoyable. And getting to know the industry back then was really interesting. Many of the people that I dealt with back then are still in the industry now, but everybody will tell you it's changed drastically, Farooq. Some people use the term Wild West. I'm not sure I would call it that, but
Right.
for sure it was a growing industry. And as with all industries, when there's a lack of regulation, then there's obviously opportunity and relatively easy opportunity. So the majority of people that had brands and B2B organizations were growing crazily and really growing their footprint across the planet. So I continued in recruitment for many years, and for 10 years ran my own business, Red Executive. And around about 2018, decided it was time to get out of that business. I was going to take some time off, in all honesty, but was approached by a Gaming Innovation Group at the time in order to step in to work for those guys. Luckily enough, I knew all their executive management team. In fact, I had placed a couple of them as a recruiter. So I knew them very well. I knew their business inside out, and took a step into the operator side and supplier side at the time. Great learning curve from an industry perspective, working on that side, because quickly after being there, we had to sell the B2C because we had a bond to pay. We had to speak to people like Betson, who we ultimately sold it to, and other operators who were keen on buying it. So the learning curve in the first 12 months there was drastic and great. Obviously, without B2C, you don't have the cash cow. So we had to start making money through the platform business and the media business. And yes, I spent 4 years trying to make the platform business profitable. And it was a really, again, a massive learning curve. We were operating in the US. I think we had 30 plus regulated markets where we acted as a platform provider. So it was fantastic. But it was a publicly listed business, Farouk. And although there's some amazing learning curves and amazing things that you can take away from that experience, I'm an opportunity-led guy. I really want to be able to look at everything for its merit and decide on that merit whether we should do it or not, and not feel restricted. And that's when the guys from Softibet came along, and I spoke to Uri and Oksana, as well as the other C-level guys. We hit it off very, very quickly. And I started here just over 18 months ago now. It's strange because somebody was speaking to me the other day and they said, "Oh, how are you getting on with the new gig?" And I was like, "I've been here 18 months." And they were like, they couldn't believe it was I'd been here for so long. But yeah, I have. And it's been an amazing 18 months for it. As I said, I was looking for an opportunity-led business, and I certainly got that. And you can see, if anybody who follows us in the news and what we're getting involved with, we've extended our regulated footprint quite drastically. Indeed, we'll also be launching into the US this summer in New Jersey. And from a product perspective, we're really pushing the boundaries. We're an innovative organisation that tries to innovate from scratch, but also innovate by looking at other industries and understand what they're doing to engage with our customers. And is ultimately a sales guy, Farouk, although I'm involved with P&Ls and business development and all these things. Ultimately, I'm a sales guy. It's amazing because you have something new on a quarterly basis in order to consider and create a pitch deck for and a story around. So that's really my story. I'm really, through recruitment, I'm a sales guy, and I suppose if you're a good sales guy, you're always going to be employable, right?
Absolutely, Martin. First of all, when I was telling my close friends that I'm going to host you at the show, they were actually thinking that you have been at Softibet like for years and years. So exactly as you say, like people really associate yourself with the brand nowadays. And I think it is one of the best things for both the company and the individual. And another thing, when you were just mentioning about your journey, as you know, I think we have done almost 30 episodes here, and I host founders, CEOs from our industry. And most of them, they say the same thing. I started at this company in iGaming just by luck, by chance. I came here, so it just happened. So yours is a little bit more deliberate, as I see, with all this learning curve and everything that you were mentioning. So it is really impressive, all these years, and we are so lucky to have you in this industry, Martin. We have a lot to learn, and today in this episode, I will dive into a couple of those things. First of all, I don't think that if there's any iGaming conference where I don't see you on the stage. It's like you're leading a successful team at Softibet. You're staying on top of all these new markets, product innovation, regulations, and everything else that we can count. I'm very curious. What's your personal system for staying sane, focused, and balanced in such a dynamic lifestyle?
So, that's an interesting question for it, because it's very pertinent at the moment, and you can see it across our entire industry that people are talking about wellness, they're talking about mental health, they're talking about all of these things. And the way that I see it, and I don't know, this is just to give some background prior to iGaming. I come from a working class family on the west coast of Scotland, and my mother worked in a shoe shop and my father was a truck mechanic. So, but what's really important to understand is that I never really wanted for anything when I was a child. Like I was happy. We had what we needed, and there was no, and you didn't think anything beyond that. So I always, looking back, I'm grateful for that. But at the same time, I can appreciate the work that my father did, because he was doing a very heavy job being a truck mechanic, right? So the reason that I'm explaining that is because the way that I see it is that I am providing for my family now, and trying to obviously improve upon the situation that I found myself in when I come into the working world. So when it's funny when people say, oh, you have to do, sometimes you need to do, 12, 13-hour days, but it's still not as much as my father did. My father used to work 20-hour days sometimes and get paid a fraction of what I get paid now. Believe me, an absolute fraction. So I think sometimes it's about, I'm not dispelling mental health issues or anything, but for me personally, I try and see the positive side of it, and I really enjoy what I do. So when I'm presented with a challenge, I always see it as an opportunity. Do I get frustrated sometimes? Of course you do, right? There's no. If anybody can not get frustrated at certain points with their job, then you know what, they need to come and speak to me and explain how they do it, because I don't understand. But everybody gets frustrated from time to time. But it's about being a little bit, I call it strong-willed, and trying to see that negative time through and then come out the other side from a positive perspective. So, if I'm probably the type of person that if I didn't have 200 million things to do every day, I'd be complaining about the fact that I don't have them to do. So I'd much rather have them there in front of me, a list of things to go through with the day, and to be challenged and to take that extra step in order to get where we need to get to. I played a lot of sport when I was a kid, Farouk, and I always used there was certain people in certain teams that I played with, and it was funny, they really struggled to celebrate a win. You'd win a trophy or you'd win a league or you'd win a match, and the next, 20 minutes later, they'd have forgotten about it and they're on to the next thing. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think you should celebrate your wins, but there is something to be said for that, and always looking forward and not looking back the way, particularly with negative things. So just keep your eyes on the prize and try and take the positives out of what you're doing. I think that's probably how I remain sane, Farouk. And you know what? I've got 3 kids. I've got 3 boys. I've got my dog. I've got my wife, and they help keep me grounded. So they remind me of exactly who I am every day. And I think that's important as well. You've got to remain humble.
Absolutely. I think we have a lot to share here with you, Martin. So I've got a similar background as yours. And it is very important to hear all this from you, especially you have got the recruitment background and HR background. So you had hundreds of conversations with people probably coming to you and talking about all those things. Another thing is I also believe in the whole process. Like the processes are something that I try to always develop, and I criticize myself that I'm not really a celebrative person. I'm not really celebrating all those wins. So I will keep it in mind as one of the takeaways from today from an expert like yourself. And you mentioned about sports. Obviously, sports, one of the best things over there is like playing in a team, building the teams. And now it's a passion for you in iGaming at your company, building talented and effective teams. We have many iGaming professionals who'd like to advance in their careers watching us today. What's your one myth about success in iGaming you think people need to unlearn fast?
It's interesting, right? So the one thing that I see is that our industry has grown meteorically for the last 20 years. Even when people said there was a downturn, there wasn't. It's an industry that continues to grow. It's still only, I think, 22, 23% of overall gambling wallet. Retail commands the rest. So, and it grows. Obviously, COVID accelerated that growth a little bit. But what I think we need to understand is that sometimes the growth isn't because of us. Sometimes the growth is because it's just a natural growth. Okay, so I think sometimes people get a little bit carried away and they say, okay, we have doubled year on year. Okay, and that's great. And I'm sure that you've done a good job in some ways. But there's still certain things that you can better yourself in, and you can analyse and understand better and make better decisions on. I think that's very important for people to understand, and that's part of being humble as well, Farouk. That sometimes the growth has happened not because of you, but because of just natural situations. So that's really important, I think. And I think the other thing to understand as well is that you see a lot of people, particularly here in Malta, you see a lot of people moving about a lot. So they move from one company to another. I think, I guess the average tenure is probably somewhere between 18 months and 2 years. And okay, listen, I get it. If you move 5 times in 10 years, the salary you'll have is if that compared to staying at one organization might be much more, maybe much more. But what people I think need to understand is that some companies are for you and some companies aren't. And you need to truly believe and understand what you're good at and what type of environment you will thrive in. Is it a corporate environment? Is it a startup? Is it a work from home environment, or is it a come to the office environment? Understand these things and be true to yourself. And rather than moving for the sake of it, move for the right reasons. I think that's pretty important as well for it.
I see. Talking about growth, by the way, Martin, we can maybe talk about SoftBet because it's like really impressive in the market. Everybody noticed, and you have been asked for some interviews. And at one of them, you mentioned that SoftBet wants to become a kind of a platform, and it really wants to compete with others like, let's say, TikTok and Netflix when it comes to the engagement. That's pretty bold ambition, I must say. What does that actually look like in the context of iGaming?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning, Farouk. So if you take your average platform, whether it's B2C or B2B, and you look at the average screen time of a customer, it ranges from somewhere between 3 to 15 minutes, maybe. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that the type of relationship that you have with your customer is very transactional. They come, they deposit, they play, they leave. Okay? But unlike me, for sure, the audience that is the predominant customer at the moment is a mobile native customer. So this is a customer that grew up with a mobile in their hand from the age of 6, 7, 8, who knows, right? And as a consequence of being native, their expectation of their mobile experience is very different to what mine would be. And if I observe my children, Farouk, what I see is that they engage with their phone in a very, very different way to the way that I do. So if I'm sitting watching the TV in the evening or watching a football match or whatever it may be, I am engaged with the TV. Whereas my children are engaged with the TV, but also engaged with a screen at the same time. Okay, maybe even 2, in all honesty. So they're looking at 3 screens at the same time: a laptop, a mobile, and the TV. It's incredible, right? But the point being is that they're engaging with the TV, they're engaging with a laptop, but what are they engaging with on their phone? Now, generally, it would be a TikTok, an Instagram, maybe a Netflix, something along these lines, some sort of casual game, whatever it may be. And if you look at the screen time that these guys have, it's an hour, 2 hours. TikTok, I mean, they were talking about banning it in the US because like some kids were up at 6, 7 hours in one session, and losing their day on TikTok. So what my point is when I say that we're competing with these guys is I don't mean that we're competing directly, but what we're competing with them for is engagement. So when we're trying to create an experience within the casino and within the sportsbook that is more engaging for the customer, so it's no longer transactional and it's more entertainment based. So that could be around the lines of gamification. It could be some features that we have, but something to keep the customer coming back and be engaged with the casino experience for sure, but also on the gamified side and create what we call it as a retention loop. So if you play the casino, you're rewarded on the gamified side. If you play the gamified side, you're rewarded back within the casino. And what we've seen is that our screen time has gone up to an hour and 12 minutes since introducing these types of features within the casino experience. So when I'm saying that we're competing with TikTok and Instagram, etc., that's what I mean. It's about screen time. It's about engagement. When they're sat on their couch in the evening watching TV, I want them playing with our brand. And not because it's a transaction, but because they're entertained by it.
Absolutely. And Martin, you have got this amazing gamification solution really contributed. I think it is mega motivational engineering gaming application. It really helped with this screen time boosting. And I'm also very curious. I don't know how much we can talk about it, but I'm very, very curious about the specific gamification mechanics that contributed to this significant increase that you mentioned. Is it possible to maybe if you can walk us through a little bit on that?
Of course. So just in terms of a story, when I first came here in October 2023, we had this gamification, but it was part of our platform. And this was when we started seeing the data coming out. Okay, increased GGR, increased screen time, increased deposits, all of this data. And what was clear to me is that we had to be able to offer it from a B2B perspective. So the first thing that we did is we decoupled it from our platform. We created APIs in order for third-party operators to be able to consume this content. Okay, so with regards to the mechanics, we have various mechanics. I think there's 25 in total now. And the mechanics vary in terms of complexity. Okay, so what many people will have seen is our bonus crab. So we have in excess of 100 machines in Cyprus, so with the claw, and when customers deposit, they get an opportunity to utilize the claw, and they can win prizes, they can win bonuses, they can win lots of different things. Now, if I told you the levels of engagement we get for this simple machine, you'd be very, very surprised. It's very, very compelling for the customer. It's nostalgic. Even the older customers like it. And, and it's funny, and you might think it's very specific to some regions, and it's quite a geographically specific game. But I've yet to find a geo where we operate where it's not appreciated. So I think it's pretty much a worldwide phenomenon. And yeah, so that's a fairly simple mechanic. And we have other things like bonus dice, which is like a Monopoly type game. We have the Wheel of Fortune, which many people have. Okay, we have a shooting range. So these are relatively simple mechanics, and it drives engagement. The customers love it. Okay, but again, it's relatively simple. Now, what we wanted to do is we were looking at mechanics within casual gaming. So we looked at things like Candy Crush, we looked at civilization builders, we looked at MMORPGs, and to try and understand how they drove this engagement and increased that screen time. And what we realized is that, it's all about achievements, it's all about challenges, it's all about being able to compare yourself with your friends. And what we did is we created a civilization builder. And like I said, that was built within the casino itself, and it creates that retention loop. Okay, so in all honesty, some customers are more interested in the gamification than they are in the casino. But because it's tied, they have to do both. Okay, so you see a benefit, right? And most interestingly, Farouk, and particularly in the markets where we operate, this type of solution is very, very positive for RG, because if somebody comes on and they want to spend €100, okay, it takes them longer to spend it than if they just sat and played the slots. So the spend is becoming more sustainable for the customer, and they're getting more entertainment for their euro, essentially. So yeah, so we created lots of these mechanics, taking them from other industries. We also now have Casino Wars, which allows you to collect cards and then fight against the house with the cards that you've collected in a war type scenario. Soon to come, we'll also have that via PvP. So you won't need to fight against the house, you can fight against each other. It's like a coin master type game, but with cards, if you like. So it's all about taking these mechanics, Farouk, and creating the experience. What's really important for success in this is understanding your audience. What we found when we created Betinia is we created a city builder, so a civilization builder. But Betinia is a sports first brand. And what we realized is we weren't getting the level of engagement with the city builder that we were elsewhere. So what we did is we created a stadium builder as an alternative, and that resonated much better with the sports fans than the city builder did. So it's about creating experiences that will resonate with your audience as well. That's very, very important. The narrative has to match the audience.
Absolutely, and the individuals as well, because since the beginning of our conversation, you really talk a lot about personalized player experience. And it makes me feel like the main thing over there, of course, understanding the markets. Like, I can give you an example. Once we were speaking with one of the industry leaders here, he mentioned that if I enter a new market, I would just move there. I take my wife, I take my kids. I would just breathe the same air, buy from the same store. So I understand the market. Yes, that's one of the major things. But data is very important. So you want to understand the next move of your players, and data can drive, all these decisions that you're taking over there and all the mechanics that you're working with. So would you please tell us a bit more on how you utilize data at SoftBet to deliver this better personalized player experience?
Okay, so you hit the nail on the head there, Farouk. It starts with localization. It always starts with localization. It's funny that when I speak to our casino team and we're entering a new market, I'll go through the competition in that market, the brands that are already there, and I'll say, okay, guys, listen, they have this provider, okay? And we need this provider. We don't have them. So can we go and get them and build it into the roadmap so when we go live, it's there? And invariably, the casino team will come and say, but Martin, that only accounts for 0.001% of wallet, okay? And my answer is, okay, I appreciate that. But the fact of the matter is that people feel comfortable when they see those brands. They might not play them, but they feel comfortable because they know what they are, they're local, and again, they might not play them, but it just makes them feel at home. So this localization is very, very important. And you used the example of the executive you were speaking before, going there and getting to feel it. We do the same. We try to get people on the ground, understanding the day-to-day. It's funny that I've worked at businesses before and the weekend was the quietest time of the week. Whereas in the majority of companies I've worked for, the weekend is the busiest time of the week. You have to ask yourself, why is that the case? And you need to go and find out, because if you find out, you might be able to adjust and you might be able to do something better. So understanding these regional nuances is very, very important. And what that does is that feeds into data, Farouk. So listen, you can get data from anywhere now, okay? The customer can share their data. If they're logging into an app, they can use their Facebook or their Google account, which provides data. You can monitor how they use the site. You can see, and by the way, if you have gamification, you actually have more data because you can see how they're engaging with the gamified side of the site as well, right? And you can see what works and what doesn't. You can see what resonates with a particular cohort and not with another. You can do A/B testing and see if something works in one area but not in. It's the possibility is endless. And then when you couple that with AI and machine learning, it all becomes automated. Now, it's funny, Farouk, right? Because we're very much in the infancy of this. And we've seen experiments where we expected, GGR to go up, actually drop. We've seen it. I think the majority of people in the industry will have seen that. Because people get used to a certain situation, and when you start changing things, it becomes interesting, right? It's like, again, our casino manager doesn't believe in putting the big name tiles at the top of the lobby, okay? Whereas the majority of sites you'll go to, you'll see the big name tiles there. Our casino team claim that if the customers want to play them, they'll find them anyway. And actually, by not having them there, other tiles get a little bit more revenue, which is interesting. It's something we're testing at the moment to see if it's actually true or whether it's just a feeling. Again, data, right? But yeah, the customer will explain to you exactly how they want their experience to go, and how they expect to be engaged with on a day-to-day, week-by-week basis, right? And you need to deliver that. It's funny, everybody uses Netflix recommendation as sort of, the starting point for all this. I don't know about you, but my Netflix recommendation doesn't work.
For me, Spotify doesn't work.
Oh, right, okay, you
Yeah,
see. So it's
yeah.
like, they're recommending music and you're like, this is nothing that I would listen to or nothing that I would ever watch. So you need to be very careful. You can't, my feeling is you can't go full hog at it immediately. But listen, you can deliver personalized experiences and you can take a step away from the UI UX of 15, 20 years ago and deliver the customer something that meets their expectation and is line with every other app that they're working with on a day-to-day basis. That as an industry, we need to catch up and we talk about innovation and we talk about internal industry innovation. But the way that we look at it is it should be external and we should actually be competing against these other guys as I spoke about earlier.
Martin, actually, you touched base on a lot of great insights, but one thing that you said, I really loved it. Customer will explain it to you. So that's amazing. I think it could be like the title of our conversation today. Definitely. The reason we are looking at data is actually we are trying to hear what customer is trying to tell us and pave the way according to what they would like to see. So that's amazing. So we were talking about markets, and I would like to jump into that topic as well. I'm watching SoftBet very closely, and I know recently you stepped into African market, another one, which is Nigeria. This market is often seen as emerging by many other brands. And some of them, they even need to be, convinced to make the move. But SoftBet just entered the market. You guys pulled the trigger there. If you can maybe tell us more about the bigger picture in terms of your expansion in the African market, I'd be very to hear your insights on that.
Okay, so what's important to understand is we believe that there's probably three ways that you can expand. You could expand organically through our B2C operation. Okay, you can expand by finding a partner, okay, as we've done in Nigeria with Channels TV, sorry. Or you can acquire. You can go and you can acquire businesses in markets where you want to operate. Okay, now, what my job is that in each individual opportunity is to understand which is the best. Okay, and we spoke earlier that if you're going to expand organically, you better have people on the ground that are explaining what you need to localize. Otherwise, you're going to fail. So this is really important. Do you have that understanding of that market? Do you have that localized input in order to be able to deliver what the minimum that is required? So with regards to Nigeria, we knew that we didn't have the local expertise. And we knew that our platform would need work in order to be successful there. So what we realized is we needed a partner. And then when we realized that we need a partner, we start looking for what I get the sales team to call our ICP, so our ideal customer profiles. So the way that we view it is that the big opportunity at the moment, unless a tier 1 or a tier 2 wants to change platform, which is unusual because at that point they'll probably be thinking about building their own platform, I would imagine. But so the ideal customer profile for us is like a telco, a media business, a retail casino that wants to move online, some business that has synergies with what we stand for within iGaming and sports betting. And we came across Channels TV, which is the largest independent TV production business in Nigeria. And they wanted to get into the industry. So there was clear synergies because they have the local knowledge, the contact with the regulator, the media business, which allows you to advertise, the connections on the ground that we don't have, and we have the platform. And we have some expertise from an online marketing perspective, and we can share our experiences together. So that was kind of the ideal scenario there for it. That's why we went with that particular deal. Now, in terms of the African project, we're very much in our infancy. We launched at the end of January, start of February. For a month or two, we were iterating on the product in order to make sure that it was localized. And we just started pushing marketing at the beginning of April. So we've only been doing it for a month. And we're seeing some interesting data as a consequence of what we're pushing. Once you get the traffic coming through, obviously there's some other changes that you need to make, which we're working through at the moment. But it's more about the opportunity in Africa, not just in Nigeria, but in the whole of Africa. I would imagine that it's about being partner-led and finding the right partners that we can work with and we can synergize together. So it's more about the opportunity with a partner than it is anything else, I would say, with Africa itself. But like I said, in certain markets, we'll go and we'll grow organically. We launched into Mexico because we had some local knowledge in the Mexican market last year. We did the same in Ontario. Okay, so it really, really depends upon the opportunity. The situation from a regulatory perspective also has a big bearing on the decision. We decided to sort of take a step away from Brazil when everybody else was kind of jumping in. I feel a little bit vilified now, in all honesty, because everybody say, "Why are you not going in?" I said, because there's a lot of uncertainty. So we decided not to at that point. We want to see how it pans out over a longer period of time. So it's about using that sort of data and that understanding to our advantage, Farouk, and being opportunistic when we think an opportunity presents itself.
Absolutely. And both partners here, they have certain expertise, and I'm really looking forward to, following what's going to happen with all these moves that you guys are taking. So it's super exciting for me. Talking about markets, the big, headline was this year, it was about, the US market expansion as SoftBet. And we know that US market is particularly becoming more and more interesting for European iGaming brands as well. And you have already taken those steps. Would you please tell us more about your game plan in the US market as SoftBet?
Sure, of course. So it's funny that a lot of people were telling me that I was crazy, or telling us that we were crazy for entering the US market at this particular moment in time. You might have seen over the last sort of 12, 18 months, there's been a lot of casualties, a lot of people pulling out of the market. And the idea of entering the market at this particular moment in time was probably a little bit strange for a lot of people. But again, this comes down to the fact that when we see a challenge, we see an opportunity. I think we spoke earlier about the transactional nature of the engagement of a customer with an iGaming or a sports betting brand. And I think in the US, this is probably more prominent than anywhere else in the world. And if I always use the example of the New Jersey Turnpike, Farouk. So when you drive from New York underneath the tunnel and come out in New Jersey on the other side, there's a big billboard that spins around. And every year that I've been there since just before COVID, there's a betting brand. Okay, so it could be MGM, it could be FanDuel, it could be DraftKings, it could be ever. And the last time I was there, last May, so almost a year ago now, FanDuel had a promotion, and it was deposit $5 and get $500. Now, you know, Farouk, that in Europe, if somebody had done that sort of promotion, they would be called crazy. Okay, but we need to think about it. FanDuel are trying to secure and maintain their market position rather than necessarily make money, because the market is obviously still opening up. But what that made me realise, even more than I already thought, was that the nature of the engagement, even with the big brands there, is entirely transactional. So as a consequence of this transactional nature of the market, what we realised was if we could give something engaging, okay, firstly, via the UI UX, okay, so we'll be entering the market with an entirely different offering, never seen before within our industry, and couple that with gamification, okay, then you're taking this mobile native cohort that is now 35, 36 years old in some cases, Farouk, and has a higher disposable income, and you're meeting their expectations in terms of interaction and engagement. So for us, everybody in that market, okay, must be feeling, maybe not the older players, okay, who see this as normal, but certainly the players in that 25 to 35-year-old cohort are looking for something entirely different and to be engaged with in a different way by casino and sports betting brands. So we see this as a massive opportunity, and we see it as an ability to come in and take some market share. Don't get me wrong, I don't think we're going to be FanDuel and DraftKings in a day, but we see it as an opportunity. There's, between all of the products, there's 27 brands in New Jersey, so we'll be 28. And we think that there's an opportunity to take some market share there and show this market that actually things can be done a little bit differently. That's the way we feel about it.
Well, I think SoftBet has all the means to really become a benchmark over there, because as you know, at Revpanda agency, we work with, I think, over like 600 brands now. So obviously a good portion of them, they are on your platform, and knowing the gamification, knowing the player experience moves that you have got, the features that you have got, I think it's going to be, some news to follow for us.
Yes.
Absolutely. And also, I want to touch base on the recent SoftBet Invest launch that you had. You're making the moves to the new markets, but also you're backing some new iGaming ideas. What kind of projects, or let's say innovations, are you most excited to fund? Because some of our viewers might be interested in the topic.
Of course. So I think yes, we did. We created SoftBet Invest last July, and it's a 50 million fund in order to invest specifically within startups of various maturity within our industry. Now, what's important to understand is that this isn't your typical fund. So if you're looking for somebody, again, to be transactional, to come along, give you €500,000, €1 million, to take a step back and for you to turn that into €3 million without having any input whatsoever, that's really not our sort of goal here, Farouk. As you've alluded to, we have nice liquidity within our organisation. So what we believe we can do is we can actually take some of these startups and give them proper testing within real time and real battle experienced situations. So, and what that does is it makes your business a little bit more robust, and it allows you to grow a little bit faster and get you where you need to go. If you've got a B2B product and and SoftBet is a customer of yours, then you can demonstrate the product working, and you can show the data and the outcomes of a consequence of your product. Whereas if you're building it from scratch and you don't have us as a customer, it's a little bit different. So we're trying to provide not only cash, but experience and understanding. Somebody said to me, is it like an incubator? I'm not sure I like the word incubator, but kind of. That's the crux of what we're trying to achieve. Now, what are we looking at, Farouk? Okay, so interestingly, even though it's a very, very saturated market, we've looked at some interesting content from the slots and the crash games, and all of the content side of the because content is king, and the more regulation that hits, the more important it becomes. So we've invested in a couple of content projects. Obviously, AI is very, very important. I particularly like when AI is combined with content again. So maybe from a video perspective, so you can take data and you can build videos through AI that engage with the customers. You can see that I have a big, when it comes to UI, UX and engagement, that's my number one thing. But then honestly, there's startups in this industry that simply do things that already exist better. So you can talk about affiliates, you can talk about SEO, you can talk about traffic generation. Some businesses just do things better. Some businesses just have better people who understand the problem better and provide a better solution. Often, I would say that the investments that we are doing are primarily driven by the people that are behind them, in all honesty. This is very important for us. And again, I spoke earlier, I alluded towards culture and how when you're looking for a job, you should obviously concentrate on the culture of that business and understand if it matches you as an individual. But it's the same with this as well. We need to be working with businesses that have the same work ethic the same drive, the same commitment that we would expect from our own people. So this is important as well. This is really important to understand. So yeah, this is what we're looking for, and this is what SoftBet's all about. SoftBet Invest is all about.
Fantastic. So if you have any project that you're running and you'd like to just present it, especially if the project is about, let's say, content, has some AI touches over there, go ahead and check out SoftBet Invest. I'm sure, Martin also can guide you on that. You can always reach him through LinkedIn as well. He's super active on LinkedIn too. Make sure you follow him at SoftBet as well. Martin, thank you. It was a super insightful conversation for me. I've learned many new things. I appreciate that you shared your own journey in our industry and also your wisdom on management and growth with your background in recruitment, HR, and everything else. We covered a lot today, from valuable tips to enter dynamic markets, as you were mentioning, like Africa and US, to the fascinating world of gamification that you're a big, fan of. I think our listeners have gained some great takeaways from this conversation. Before we wrap up the show today, do you have anything else to add and share with our listeners?
I think, listen, our industry is fun, Farouk, and that's why I'm here. All right, because I like to work hard, but I like to have some fun as well. And if you're having fun along the road of, even when you're on a bumpy road or a challenge, it's a little bit easier. So I think I'd like to remind everybody that our industry should be fun and we should enjoy it. Sometimes we get a little bit serious about ourselves. I think that, we're in an industry where, it is fun. So let's enjoy it and let's not be too serious.
I think there wouldn't be any better ending words from this, except this one. Thank you so much. Thank you, Martin. And so I think you're heading to next Valletta Summit, right? It's going to be in the first week of May.
Actually, I won't be in Valletta, unfortunately. I'm traveling next week, but I will be in Miami for SBC Americas.
Amazing. So that's another big trip ahead of you. So yeah, just want to mention that as Revpanda Group, we are official media partners with next Valletta Summit. And if anyone watching us today, if you haven't got your tickets, go ahead. I will just drop the link in the description and you can get your 20% discount. And you can also probably meet SoftBet team over there. If you have any questions, you can ask them directly. Martin, once again, thanks a lot for the fantastic conversation, and everyone watching us today. Thank you for joining us. And if you have anything to ask and learn more about the things that we discussed, you can always reach us out directly to me or Martin on LinkedIn. Probably it would be the best way. So once again, thank you and have a lovely rest of